Hello, welcome to Portal Stormer. I'm Kelly Proudfoot and I'm going to be sharing a little bit of a video about the retreat at the Penuel Ridge Retreat Centre in Ashland City that I did a few weeks ago. I did it for just 2 days. I frog marched myself through this almost spiritual boot camp so that I could just finally get over some childhood trauma. So I wanted to share what happened to me there, how I did it. I'm not poo-pooing psychotherapy. It's definitely necessary, and I've been through different levels, and I'm actually with a great therapist now that I've met through BetterHelp, and she's a lovely lady. She's been really good with guiding me, and I just felt for myself, because I'm a quite stoic person, have sort of become that way because of stuff that happened in my life. I mean, it happens to all of us. So I wanted to share here what happened. I wanted to just finally deal with all the crap that I felt, that all the little things that I tried to do throughout my life just didn't work, just didn't deal with it, whether it was therapy, whether it was medication, whether it was self-help books, whether it was different spiritual healing modalities and so on. But this was where I just took the bull by the horns and said, you know what, no matter what, you're going to get through this and you're going to get over this so that you can now move on and be a happy person in your life and hopefully making others happy. So what I'm going to do is just walk through how I did it at the Penuel Ridge Retreat Centre. You might not think this is a good idea for you. This is just what worked for me, and if you're the sort of person who just wants to finally just get over it, it might work for you. But I first wanted to just talk quickly about the difference between the resort versus the retreat. I mean, a resort, of course, is when you want to get away, you want to just relax and have fun and all that sort of stuff. But a retreat is different. It's almost the opposite. It's withdrawing to take stock, assess and review, and then make plans how you're going to move forward. And so that's what I wanted to do with this retreat centre. I was so lucky, but also it was frightening because I was the only one there for the 2 days. It's about 130 acres and it's a beautiful property, lovely things to do there. And it was a great blank canvas because it wasn't filled with a lot of guided activities, itineraries, people telling you at 2 o'clock we've got to go horse riding. You know, I didn't want any of that crap. I wanted to be able to go and just finally deal with this stuff, get it out of the way. So that's why this was definitely the best retreat too, because even some of the other ones which were kind of nice, it was still all not performative, but people had plans for you. I wanted to just finally take charge. And I set my intentions, even though I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it. I knew I would do a few different things. One thing I wanted to do was just open up, because I'm usually closed, being agnostic, almost atheistic. I tend to be closed off. So this time I thought, if I'm going to heal, it's time to do everything the opposite to what I have done in the past that hasn't worked. Another reason apart from childhood trauma was also compassion fatigue, working in the service industry, helping like social services, people who are in need. Oftentimes they just come at your arms outstretched, and I felt, even though it was overwhelming because they have a lot of overblown expectations, expecting that we're going to fix their whole life for them, I understood that some of it was also because the way growing up with an alcoholic, narcissistic mother, having those expectations and just all that, always coming at you, expecting me to be the mother and so on, which I'll talk about in other videos. So I was dealing with that, and that's of course part of the complex PTSD. I was exploring different healing modalities. I've been through I've been through counselling, deep therapy, dream therapy, but it's funny how sometimes you just got to go through life, figure out what works for you, and then just and then make your own path, which is what I did. Another thing I had to, and I'm still dealing with, but it's funny now that I'm on the other side, it's a lot better, was my negative self-talk. Constantly I had a lot of issues with that. And of course, depression and anxiety, like most of us deal with, to varying degrees. The compassion fatigue really fed into that for me. And also, getting older, I'm 58 years of age, and as a crone, as an older woman, you know, just like anybody else, looking back and thinking, what have I done in my life? So it was just dealing with all those issues. And then, of course, you know, the great thing about this property is that it is a certified wildlife habitat, and I did see deer and all the beautiful birds, and it was just wonderful, just a very peaceful, quiet place. But the funny thing is getting there, oh my God. Okay, I'd taken a week off work. I'd planned and packed and prepped and everything. It was down to the written down my own GPS, so I knew exactly how to get there. Of course, I got lost twice. And it was just because, as usual, road signs are pretty crappy. So I eventually got there, and once I did, thank God, the volunteer was there, and she was great. When I got in there, I realized that I'm going to have to start prepping and figuring out how I'm going to do this. So after she showed me around and she told me I was going to be the only one there, I was a little shocked. I thought someone else would be there on the property at least. So then I was worrying about faces looking in the windows, trespassers. She said, hey, the phone's there, you can call, because there's no cell coverage there. But so that was a bit daunting. But once she left, I thought, okay, let's get into it. Let's start prepping. And what I did first, after unpacking my bags and just walking around just to get the stress out of my body, I decided to do a tour. And what I loved about this place, I was in the main retreat house, and they had all these beautiful little like in the trinkets and bric-a-brac and things here and there, just little things that made me realize you got to appreciate the small things. It was something that really, as I said, I opened myself up. And I realized that when you do open yourself up, possibilities open up. It's funny how when you close yourself off, because just keep everybody away from me, just let me live my life, you get to a point where you realize you do need people, but there's no one there. So that was one thing I learned, a message I got. I don't know if that was from spirit or just something I realized myself. Smile at the small things. But it's a beautiful place. There's so many different rooms, and it's rustic but also very well organized at the same time, and not over the top. It's interfaith, which is great. So really you can go there and just use the place, like I said, as a blank canvas. But then if you do need some things, that they're there for you. It's just beautiful. I just think it's the best place. Now, that first night, it was a bit intense. I couldn't eat. Actually, I didn't eat the whole weekend, and now it's actually nearly 2 weeks, actually, since the retreat, and I'm still not eating properly at all. Maybe a meal a day is what I'm averaging, and I can't explain. Ever since the first night I got there, it was like every mouthful I couldn't swallow. So I did decide I would sit down and just start writing. And what was interesting that night, I wrote 14 pages, like it just flew out of me. And it really was like a purge. I cried my butt off. I wiped my face to the point where I've still got a chapped face from all the blowing my nose and that. But it was necessary. I poured my heart out about issues I have in my own life now, currently, with other people, but also went right back to my childhood and really started digging and started understanding the things that happened to me, and writing it out. Of course, it's fantastic. Even if you don't reread it, just get it out. It's amazing. It's just like a great therapy session. So again, like I said, I didn't sleep, I didn't eat, but that night I did do a tarot reading, which was very interesting. I do treat it with a very healthy level of skepticism, because I do like to come back afterwards and check, did that really happen? And sometimes it does work out, but I think sometimes too the tarot or any other divination tool is basically just helping you unearth what's inside. I don't think there's messages come from external, but then I don't know, because my whole worldview in regards to spirituality and connection to the divine changed dramatically during this retreat. So of course, like I said, I didn't sleep and eat. I was very fortunate to see a beautiful deer come up on the front lawn of the main retreat house, but I took photos, but it was just too far away in the photo. But it was just beautiful. I had this real sense of, my spirit was saying, okay, you're ready to do this work, are you okay? It was just a lovely moment. And also too, I've posted a video before about the lesson I learned from the birds about the ebb and flow of life. In the morning, even though I'd had a rough night, walking around crying and yelling at myself, it was really bad. In the morning I had a new wave of energy, so I made a cup of tea and sat in front of the window in the day room and watched the birds, and it was interesting to watch the birds, some of them on the ground catching the seed as they fell down, some other birds just in the feeders going nuts eating. It was just lovely just seeing, okay, these birds, this is the ebb and flow of life. Some of us are on the sidelines waiting for our turn, some are in the fray going at it, others are darting in and out just to see what's going on. It's just really interesting to remind myself, you know what, you're always blocking yourself off from the world. Sometimes it is good to put ourselves out there and just learn. It's a dance. Just learn what to watch out for to keep yourself safe. Also, this was an incredible experience I had. I saw some statues on the table and I was thinking, oh my God, they're all turned the other way. The little child was actually on all fours just like a dog. And I thought, let me just play around with these and put them back in place. So I turned the woman around first and then the child. But when I turned the male around, it freaked me out, because it's a spitting image of my boss. It's his face to a T, and the people I've showed it to have all 100% agreed with me. What was really sad that week, that same week I was on the retreat, he lost his wife. And when I saw this face on the statue, I just felt compelled to just sit and pray and send loving light and great vibes to him, to cocoon him and keep him safe. It was just quite extraordinary, actually. That's one statue that had a face. There was another statue, which I'll talk about a bit later. And I did a tour of the property. I was so manic, but it was also so cold. Sorry, I'm just trying to stop a cat from infiltrating. It was so cold I knew I wouldn't be able to do the full thing right for early in the morning, but I did a quick tour of the property. It was nice. But I panicked because I locked myself out of the house, and the instructions they'd given me about how to put the code in was slightly different to how you did it. So of course I couldn't get in, panicked, trying to call them, didn't have cell coverage, got in my car, drove down to the road. It was a whole thing that morning. So, and I knew at the time I was freaking out, that I was freaking out, and that I had the power to stop it. But somehow it was like, you know, when you start just falling and crashing, you think that's it. And I knew I was already a cracked vessel, already just. So that was intense. But luckily, I was able to get through to her, and she explained, and I was able to get back in. I decided before I'd go back out later on, when it was warmer, to the well to do the meditation. The well, by the way, is a circular building. That's why they call it the well. It's interesting. I'll show that a bit later. But I did a tarot reading. Here's the cards I had. And the volunteer had told me about this room downstairs. She said, oh, it's a great energy if you want to do readings. They're sort of like half sunk into the ground. Because it's a basement, but it was a really gentle energy, and I did the reading. And I just want to, as an aside, every time I see on YouTube people doing readings for Virgo, I'm just idly looking at it. I treat it with kid gloves, but what's been freaking me out the last week and a half, every Virgo reading I've seen on YouTube has pretty much those cards. I would say 98% of the cards will turn up in their reading. So I will explain my interpretation of what I think's going on in another video, but I just thought I'd share that. That was really interesting. And this room was lovely. It really did have a nice vibe to it. I never felt threatened, even though I was scared to be on my own. So that's good. Now, I had gone out to the well earlier in the morning, but it was just too cold. But when I did finally decide that it was time to do the work, it was really harrowing and really horrible. I sat down at the kitchen table and I wrote down my intentions. I want to go here and finally face myself, deal with this crap so I can move on. And so on my way to the well, it's down in the lower field. So I walked from the main retreat house down to the lower field, and it was like walking through concrete. My legs were like lead, and then halfway, and I'll show the video at a later date, halfway to the well, I felt like all I could do was just fall onto the ground and allow it to swallow me up. That's how low I was. But by the time I got in, I thought I was just dragging myself by the scruff of my own neck. That's a stoic thing to do. It's just, you got to do it, just get through it. So I went in, and first of all, I was just too, I don't know what I'm doing. So I just walked around and just, okay, I want to finally deal with this, blah, blah, blah. Just started almost drumming up the energy. And then when I finally sat down, I really surprised myself. I dropped into a meditative state. When I got to the certain plateau where I was able to finally calm myself and say, okay, what am I dealing with? I'm dealing with all the stress with work, with compassion fatigue, with complex PTSD, with blah, 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 blah. I'm just sick of people. I'm sick of helping people. They're always coming at me. Blah, blah, blah. As I'm thinking all this, I see a face coming towards me, actually two faces. It was Mary and the baby Jesus, but keeping in mind I'm mostly agnostic, my soul spoke. It was like my mouth didn't even say the words. It was just like, Mother Mary. It came out like an exaltation, which is bizarre for someone who's mostly atheist. Well, could be atheist, but, well, I don't know. I should stop saying that because I don't know who I am now. But anyway, what was interesting was she answered me quite forcefully, and she had baby Jesus with her. It was like the Egyptian Coptic imagery, let me just say icons. My tongue isn't working. So she was floating towards me in my mind's eye. I'm sitting there meditating. I'm like, huh? And like I said, I'd said to Mother Mary, like, I made this connection, and it wasn't lost on me the irony that I'm dealing with issues with my mother, and yet a saint from Catholic faith comes floating towards me. But the words that came out from her sort of crushed me, because she said, you don't get to choose. And I just burst into tears, and I'm like, trying not to swear at a deity if she actually was there. And I was like, what? And then it was like, not words, but the meaning came into my mind. Protect yourself, of course, but you don't get to assess who needs help more, or who, whether or not they deserve your assistance, blah, blah, blah. How would you feel if someone did that to you? You're really in need, and you turn to someone and they just go, no, I don't help people like you. That whole meaning really drilled into me. And as I'm absorbing these lessons and crying and thinking, oh, how am I going to get away from this, I had a lot of epiphanies, and she was just throwing that. And she was saying things like soul print, and the small things. This. Who am I? You know who you are. What am I supposed to do? You're already doing it. It was just confusing and blah, blah, blah. So it was still, I was swirling in it. But by the time I came out, I was like a cracked vessel, even more so. It was like, but I was a bit lighter. It was like I'd had that realization, shifted my vision, so I was able to assess things differently. And by the time I came out, I was on the path. I feel like I was. But before I go on, I just want to show this. The well is a circular building, as I said, and the way they made it inside, you can see still the imprints of the men's backs as they pushed or the plaster into the wall. It's just a incredible space. Great acoustics too. Just, oh, if you want stillness, it's a great place to go. But anyway, when I came, so I decided after the session in the well, even though I was real shaky, I came around to take a visit with the Mendicant Women, which is a series of statues created by the artist Rick Pride. And he was talking about how these women have been part of all different religions and throughout the world have been in communities helping people, sacrificing themselves in order to help others. And boy, was that linked in with the lesson something chronic. I was just like, really? So I stood there and read the piece that was given to me on a flyer about the artwork and about how, whether it was in the mystic Sufi traditions or Christian religions and others, where the women would just be receiving alms and assistance from people just enough to survive and supporting each other just so they could help others. And they themselves had been broken but also repaired. And I was trying to think, what is this lesson? And I understood about not having to be picky and choosy. Like, what, am I only going to help almond mums? Am I only going to help people who are rich? No, it was just that some people who are so broken, who don't know how to handle themselves in public, can come rushing at you, and it's very triggering for me. But as I was watching this, I thought, well, okay, just like Mother Mary said, you can protect yourself, but just remember, and I know I'm not a snob, I'm not going to be so picky and choosy. And the interesting thing is, now that I'm on the other side, my heart has really opened up. It was amazing, this experience. But I also wanted to share something that freaked me out. When I was looking at these statues, first of all, the one right in the back reminded me of my mum. My mum was a lot darker than me. We're part Aboriginal and Chinese. So it was a big shock when I started looking at each statue individually and realised there was a couple of them that stood out. The first one was the one that I think represented my mum, sitting in the shadow behind the statue at the front. But the one to the far right, I thought, let me get down. I had to really crouch over the statues and then sort of twist my body in just to get a shot of the face. But when I did and turned the phone around to look at myself, I was shocked, because as far as I'm concerned, especially when I've got my hair up, this statue has my face on it. It's like I was the model. And when I was watching it and looking at it and just completely bamboozled, I thought, this face is representative of the darkness within me, the sorrow, the depression, the anxiety, but also the negative sides of me that can come up from those energies, like meanness, sarcasm, the things of that nature. So it was really important for me to be very aware as I meditated on this face, which was also, it was churning up the feelings of my childhood trauma, but also the compassion fatigue. It sort of churned into one thing, but I just thought this face showed, of course, before I went to the retreat, I was not coping, and this was how I was feeling. I was dark, I was, you know what, F everybody, blah, blah, blah. But I really cried looking at this, because especially now looking at it, it's only been a week and a half, and I do not want to go back to be the person I was before. Now, I will say, now that I'm on the other side, I do feel like a newborn whose shell hasn't hardened, so I'm still very sensitive, and I'm being very careful about what I allow myself to be exposed to. One thing I have noticed, of course, since then is because I'm a little bit more forthright and not accepting of manipulative behaviour, I do tend to lose my temper a lot, so I'm sort of watching that. But I think that's also tied in with the fact that I haven't been eating much still to this day. So my blood pressure must be high, so I'm sort of trying to eat, trying to maintain balance and work and deal with all this crap. But now that I'm on the other side, I'm really glad that I'm operating from a different level, from a position of strength. And I really do think that's important. When you dig all the shit out, look at it and push it to the side and say, okay, you've done damage for so long now, you're not even a twinkle in my eye. It's really important to do that, just sometimes, even if it's just fake it till you make it, because in order to put one foot ahead of the other, we need to be strong, and especially in these days, in this time and age. But I wanted to go on and share what happened next. So after the mendicant women, I wanted to go to the labyrinth to walk it, to work out the stuff, but I was so tired. Just keep in mind, I was so dog-tired and dragging my butt to the well, and then I'd had a session with the mendicant women. I thought, no, I've got to take this, because if I go back and crash, I'll never come back out to do this. And I had a basic understanding of what was required, but when I got to the labyrinth, I haven't got a photo here because it's sort of winter and it's all low to the ground. It's hard to see unless you're right on it. So I decided, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, as I make my way to the centre, start dredging up the old hatreds, the self-hatred, the negative self-talk, and all the things that happened to me, and the anger and the shit that I never really expressed properly, or at least at the time didn't express. So I'm stomping and having tantrums and stopping every now and again to have to blow my nose, because I'm telling you, I was in it. And thinking now, maybe I should have had someone there, because God, if I had a heart attack or whatever, no one would have found me for a couple of days. But anyway, as I walked my way through the centre, I just let myself rage. It was just that all the rage was coming out, whether it was at me or other people, and it was just the thoughts and the blowing of the nose and the crying and the yelling and the blah, blah, blah. So if anybody had been watching from the outskirts or the outside of the property, they would have thought, oh my God, there's this crazy woman going, let's call the cops. But when I got to the centre, it was interesting, because it was like the energy was pinned on the spot. It was a physical thing I could feel. I don't know if it was auto-suggestion or if I was projecting, but I really did feel like, okay, I'd whipped up that energy, and now I'm in the centre. It was like, what am I going to do with it? Sorry, I'm just watching my cat being an idiot. So I looked up at the skies, and it was weird. I just had this compulsion to throw my arms out, and when I did that, it was a very grey sky, but there was a sliver of white where the cloud was slightly shining, and I could see a shard of light. It sounds a little bit wanky. I mean, like I said, I'm not religious, but I felt like something was just saying to me, time to unwind all that, undo all that crap you just drummed up, bringing into the centre. So when I just threw my arms and I said, no more, I yelled really loud. And I'm telling you, when I stomped my way out of the labyrinth, it was incredible. It was just yelling out things like, you're not allowed. It's not allowed anymore. No more negative self-talk. You can take a back seat, bitch. You know, I was talking to that negative side to at least tell myself that's just not allowed. I mean, my negative self-talk a few years ago ended up really bad. I was just hurting myself in the shower. I was just losing it. And then I had to stop. So having gone through this, I'm telling you, it's amazing how that's diminished. It's not 100% gone, but the negative self-talk pretty much dissipated. When I came out of that labyrinth, I stormed. I stomped and stormed my way back to the main retreat house, and really felt the power for the first time, feeling properly empowered, not the make-believe, but really feeling the energy like burning it from my soul outwards. It was like it was burning off some of the layers of the trauma, and it was wonderful, and I'm so happy, even though it was terrifying. But I would recommend anybody do this kind of work, especially if you're a stoic person and you don't really like to have to go and do all the airy-fairy, touchy-feely things. Sometimes it's good just to get to the point. What is the problem? Okay, there it is, and get rid of it. You cats are going to get your bums smacked. Alright, so after Labyrinth, I did go to the magnolia tree, which I'm going to talk about in a sec, but As I was coming out of the labyrinth, I found all these evergreen things like fern fronds and pine needles. So I had to gather them up. As I was stomping, something just told me, "This is meant for you, take it." It's funny because when I got back to the main retreat house, I saw that the stuff that I had foraged in the morning was all either dead or dormant. And I thought, how interesting. Before I did that major work in the well and with the mendicant women statues and the labyrinth, it was like this was representative of the stuff that I was going to leave behind, even though there might have been, as represented by the magnolia seed pod, some seeds that might have been viable, could have been a representation of possibilities, of opportunities and growth in the future. But then after all that horrible session that I get, what I foraged, inadvertently without even thinking it, were the evergreens and the stuff that was still alive. So that really hit me because I thought to myself, it really, everything I did at the retreat solidified. You are here to kill off the old stuff that doesn't work, and everything I did, it was just natural how it happened, but it just turned out to be exactly what I needed. Um, and I just wanted to share this magnolia tree. It doesn't look like much now, it's just a picture here. But when I came out of that well after that heavy session meeting Mother Mary, this tree was almost like it was speaking to me. There was energy, and the leaves were ultra glossy and the colours were vibrant. And so I was just compelled to grab one of the leaves with my left hand, just to receive messages. And it was just the simplest of things, like just to remember how to return to your calmness and stop worrying about small things. You overcomplicate things. It was that kind of message. And then something compelled me to release that and then grabbed another leaf with my right hand to give thanks and well wishes. And it was just a beautiful moment. And it sounds really wishy-washy, but at the time it really spoke to me about the essence of life, and just to remind myself, because I had been in such a dead state for so long, dragging one foot after the other, just going through the motions to pay the bills, just frog marching myself to death. I mean, it reminded me to pause, and it's amazing how many things now mean nothing to me that was so important before I went to this. It's just really awesome. And as a side note, I want to say here, when you're going through mental health, it really is important to mental health issues. It really is important to discuss it with a professional who can assess whether or not you have the capacity, the physical and mental capacity to be able to withstand something like this. I did this because I just had to, but I imagine if you had problems with heart issues or other medical conditions, it might have triggered or done something to you. But I'm telling you, for me, as arduous as it was, and as much as I didn't eat and everything, well, you know, it's just worth it, is what I'm trying to say. Now, I wanted to share something else. It's a bit personal. The last night, I was, after that, those epiphanies and experiences during the day, I tried to sleep, and it was horrible. Once again, I couldn't sleep, so I ended up having to call my husband. And he was wonderful. He just did what he usually does, that calm blue ocean kind of vibe. You know, everything's going to be fine. When you come home, we'll sit and talk about it, and everything's going to flow on. At the moment, you're just in it. But if you want to come home, come home. And I knew, no, I would never forgive myself if I had to come home. So I thanked him, and when I hung up, I hadn't even taken my hand off the receiver. And I pooped in the chair, and thank God I had my dressing gown on, and I was able to bend down, gather myself up to not drop anything anywhere, because they've got antique, beautiful furniture and stuff. Now, when I say I pooped, it was just a tiny bit of jelly, green jelly. It was horrible. I was horrified, and I started crying, and then something told me, I'm tired of crying. I'm tired of it, tired of being a big baby. And as I was cleaning myself up, I realised, okay, yes, my husband was able to just help me release, even though I didn't want to release like that. But it was lovely. But it dawned on me as I was cleaning it all up, you know, we can all wallow in self-pity. I see some of these people really getting into that trend of bed rotting. I've been through depression and some really dark times, and I'm telling you, I freaking hate it. But I do understand the notion of wanting to wallow, and it's sort of like a gothic sort of, you know, you get attention from others, or you feel like, oh, I'm cocooned, I'm safe. There's a thing about depression that can help you, yeah, delve deep and understand yourself. But if you allow yourself to sink too deep and then you become so entrenched in it, it becomes your identity. And that's the same with a lot of people these days. Their mental health issues or what have you becomes their identity all of a sudden. And while I'm really happy at the moment focusing on this, trying to help others and everything, I don't ever want to go back to that place where everything was totally hopeless. To be honest, I had passive suicide ideation. I was like, I can't say that word, sorry. Passive, P-S-I. I was never going to do it, but then that in itself created another bubble of resentment and bitterness towards people. It's like, I can't off myself because I don't want to do that to you, but now I've got to keep living. I'm doing this for, you know, it was a whole thing. Since I did this retreat and almost flipped the switch on myself, all those things seem so childish, painful, embarrassing. But I also feel bad that I allowed myself to go through it for so long. But anyway, I wanted to share this just to show my way that I did this, and I will be explaining, extrapolating, and talking about the different things that I did and what I felt really worked. Pretty much everything did. But it's not for the faint-hearted. I'm still dealing with this stuff, but I'm on a much better plane now. So what I'm going to do is continue sharing videos to show the different things, the different epiphanies, the different realizations I came to. But I'm also going to be sharing stories throughout history, looking at different people who had not only similar issues as me, but other people, and just to explore the, you know, sometimes character development really helps us delve deep into ourselves. And I love storytelling, and I love sharing stories. And if anybody wants to share a story, would like me to talk about it, whatever, I'll be happy to do that. This is going to be a very organic website. I'm going to be doing dream interpretation sometimes. I don't know. We'll see how we go. But I really do want to focus on sharing and discussing issues and information about mental health, especially through storytelling. So I hope you enjoyed this. Not that it was an enjoyable experience, I suppose, but if you think that it's worth your while, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Thank you.